Lando Norris stuns Max Verstappen for pole position for the 2024 Spanish Grand Prix on a day which quite literally started on fire for McLaren. From RacingNews365.com, my name is Nick Golding and I'm joined as always by lead editor Ian Parks, who I don't think has sunscreen on, but to be honest, it doesn't look too sunny in the background. Ian, what a day. So many questions have been answered. It seems like Red Bull have been caught. Lando Norris, his second career pole position on a day which actually started horrifically for McLaren.
Yeah, let's go right to that straight away there, Nick, because just before the start of final practice here at Barcelona's Circuit de Catalunya, as you say, a fire broke out in the McLaren paddock building. They describe it as their team hub, so I'll use that phrase going forward. It's understood to have been sparked by an electrical fault between the first and second floors. As you say, it took hold to a certain extent. Everybody was evacuated relatively safely. Just one person, one McLaren team member, had to be taken to hospital simply for precautionary checks. That person has thankfully been released, discharged, without any injury or harm. So that's the good side of things to report. The bad side of things for McLaren is that team hub would appear to be inoperational for the rest of the weekend. And bearing in mind what Lando Norris said in the post-qualifying press conference, it could be inoperational for maybe the Austrian Grand Prix next weekend and maybe even McLaren's home race in Silverstone. We do not know yet. The damage is still being assessed. But needless to say, the fire brigade did their job. They were quickly on hand. As I say, everybody was evacuated, everybody out, safe and sound. The good news for McLaren coming out of that, and what a tonic Lando Norris gave that team, because on the back of that fire, they could not have wished for anything more than Lando putting his car on pole position, beating Max Verstappen by just 0.02 of a second. So yet another tense qualifying duel for Max. If you remember in Canada just a fortnight ago, an absolute dead heat with Mercedes' George Russell. But George set that time first. That's why Max was not on pole. So looking at it, this is the third successive Grand Prix in which Max Verstappen has not been on pole position. That hasn't happened for almost 2 years. That gives you a level or an idea as to his level of dominance over that period of time. So yes, and at a circuit as well, where it is such an indicator as to the car's performance for the rest of the season, Red Bull, without a shadow of a doubt, I think we can quite comfortably say now, has been caught in this aerodynamic era, and they do most definitely face a fight to hang on to their drivers' titles and constructors' titles this season.
I mean, it gives us such a spectacle, not only for this weekend, but the rest of the season. But just sticking with McLaren for a second, obviously, Lando, his second F1 pole position. It was a tremendous lap because obviously Verstappen went 0.3 quicker. And I think we all thought, oh no, Verstappen's unleashed the RB20, only for Norris to go and pit him by, like you said, 0.02 of a second. Of course, mixed fortunes for McLaren. Oscar Piastri, provisionally P10, obviously will be P9 with a Sergio Perez grid penalty, but we'll speak about him in a second. Nevertheless, though, McLaren, we said going into the weekend, it was important for them to prove that they are the second best team because they've been so close with Ferrari. They've shown that they are not only probably the second best team, but actually, are they on a par with Red Bull? Can we go as far as saying that?
I think looking at the one lap pace, most definitely. I asked George Russell, who starts fourth in his Mercedes on Sunday, what the race pace was like for Mercedes, bearing in mind, and we are going to get onto them in more detail, that they are now back in that mix. He indicated, George, that he felt that McLaren and Red Bull just had a fraction edge on Mercedes at the moment, but then he was fully expecting Red Bull to wind it up in the Grand Prix. So whilst, yes, McLaren is without a shadow of a doubt most definitely in the fight on a qualifying Saturday, we still have Sunday to assess. We know that McLaren has definitely looked good. Ever since it added the upgrades onto its car from the Miami Grand Prix onwards, it has been getting closer and closer. It's definitely done so in qualifying here at Barcelona's Circuit de Catalunya. Definitely now on a par with Red Bull, that's for sure. Is it on a par with Red Bull in the Grand Prix? Time will tell, but from everything that we can judge so far, what's taken place over the 3 practice sessions, it does seem to be definitely in the running. Lando definitely in the running for that Grand Prix victory alongside Max tomorrow. It's going to be an absolutely fascinating battle as to who's got the edge in terms of tyre wear, who's got the edge in terms of strategy. It's going to be really one to look forward to, that's for sure.
And there is also going to be, at least tomorrow morning, a few eyes on the sky, because there is reportedly a little bit of rain around. It's not sunny. That's one thing we can say. Looking at Red Bull, obviously, Max Verstappen, P2, but a stellar lap, a brilliant performance. Sergio Perez, okay, only did 1 fresh soft tyre run in Q3, 6/10 down, and on a weekend where he has his 3-place grid penalty, only 8th in Q3, meaning he will start provisionally from P11. We've been saying for the last few minutes how close now the likes of Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari are to Red Bull. And yet again, Sergio is not there in the positions where Red Bull really needs him right now.
Shut now. He is absolutely struggling. He spent a considerable period of time earlier this week in the simulator, and I asked him about that. And he's been working on so many different things. The team this weekend so far in practice worked on so many different setups. And at one stage he said, I see light at the end of the tunnel in speaking post-qualifying. And then he went and contradicted himself by saying, we're struggling. Well, he's been struggling for a long time now. Nearly added a word in there, but just managed to catch myself.
Yeah.
But yes, he's not there for Max. We talked about this on Friday after practice. The team need him. Right now, this is when Red Bull really need Sergio Perez to come to the fore. He's got that new contract in his pocket. We've discussed that. I myself said, too early. No, not yet. Give it a bit of time, because he's not performing. And he's definitely not performing at a time when, as I say, Red Bull really need him to be the support to Max if they are going to hang on to this Constructors' title. On this occasion in the Spanish Grand Prix, unfortunately for Lando, he doesn't have Oscar anywhere near him. You said you were going to touch on Oscar. Might as well do that very quickly now. He did look as if he was going to be there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Not quite at Lando's level, that's for certain. But then in Q3, he had his first lap deleted. And then on his second flying lap, he spun the car. So not great for him. He knows that. This was an opportunity because that car is right there, right now, on a par with Red Bull. So definitely the 2 guys on the front row, when they really needed the support act on this occasion, they don't have it. And instead, they've got Mercedes gunning for them. Lewis and George, 3rd and 4th on the grid, locking out at 2nd row. Charles and Carlos, 5th and 6th on the grid for Ferrari, locking out that 3rd row. As I say, it's really going to be a fascinating strategy battle on Sunday. And in particular as well, just what are the tyre choices going to be? Because you touched on the weather, Nick. I'll just give everybody a quick update as we stood here on Saturday evening. It is due to start raining at 10 o'clock tonight, and you can see the dark clouds over there starting to fall. It's then going to start throwing it down all through the night into the morning, due to start to ease off late morning. And then looking at the weather forecast as I did before I came on here, there's due to be light rain mixed with sunshine from the early afternoon all the way up to race start time. So that is actually a shift from what was due to be forecast, because it was due to start raining completely late morning and then dry out, and it looked like it was going to be a dry start. That has now changed. We could have another mixed condition track for the start of the Grand Prix. But again, it could all change tomorrow morning as well. Let's see what the weather brings. But certainly right now, it's definitely going to be a lot of rain overnight into the morning, that's for sure.
And obviously, I suppose a lot of the weather depends massively on the wind direction, because something that a lot of drivers said, particularly in Q3, was obviously the wind intensifying. And obviously, that could also have a big factor on what happens overnight and into tomorrow. You mentioned their Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton in third, George Russell in fourth. The first time Lewis has out-qualified George since Miami. It's, George has very much been Mr. Saturday in Mercedes. But we asked the question, obviously, ahead of this weekend, are Mercedes back? Was Canada just a fluke? It does appear on paper, whilst they're not quite on the pace of Red Bull McLaren, the Mercedes are very much in that fight for podiums.
Yeah, George specifically said that he probably had about another 0.2 in that car as far as he was concerned. That would still have left him a 10th behind.
Yeah.
Lewis, similar kind of picture. Probably could have got a little bit more out of the car, he felt so. But as you say, they are right there. We have talked about Mercedes quite a bit already this season in the hope that that car would again come to the fore, because it's been 2 years off the pace now. Yes, they had that victory in the Sao Paulo Grand Prix of 2022. Their one and only victory over these past 2.5 years, effectively. And there was a suggestion then, here we go, Mercedes back. There were signs last year that they were slowly coming back, but it never really happened. And here we are. They've been making these incremental gains in the course of this season. They've been adding upgrades to that car for quite some time. There's been positivity being exuded from everyone in Mercedes. Toto Wolff, James Allison, Andrew Chauvelin, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell. They've all said the same thing. And you've kind of been thinking, yeah, prove it, show us. Well, here we go. Canada, they've proven it. And definitely today in Spain, they've proven it as well. Locking out the second row. And as we've discussed previously, Nick, this circuit is a good indicator as to what's to come for other circuits to follow. So without a shadow of a doubt, we can expect them to go reasonably well around Austria. We know that's never been their kind of track. And I'm sure they are now most definitely looking forward to their home race at Silverstone. That's going to be another good one for them, they would hope.
That is some beautiful music in the background, my add. That's almost
we
quite...
have Monster and Cavalier and Freddie Mercury belting out Barcelona, which I'm thinking that's just going to be the practice. They've been doing that. They did that last night as well on Friday. They're doing it again right now. I think you're going to be hearing that song at some stage over the course of Sunday, that's for sure.
Well, we'll look forward to it. Very quickly to run through the top 10. Obviously, Lando Norris on pole with Max Verstappen alongside him, Hamilton and Russell third and fourth, Leclerc and Sainz fifth and sixth, Pierre Gasly seventh for Alpine. Obviously, Perez provisionally eighth in qualifying, but obviously will start from P11. Esteban Ocon in P9 with Oscar Piastri in P10. Ferrari fifth and sixth. They look good in FP3, particularly Carlos Sainz. Leclerc was a bit of a naughty boy in FP3. Do you think there'll be a sense of disappointment at Ferrari?
Absolutely. Carlos Sainz said it himself, because he said in coming out of FP3, he thought, we got a shot at pole here. Charles Leclerc would have probably thought along the same lines, because he commended his team during that practice session for saying, good job, guys, we've got on top of things, because he came out of Friday not great in FP1, describing it as horrendous, but that was for a multitude of different reasons. Performed better in FP2, but said after FP2 that he felt he knew where he could make up time. Sure enough, he did that in FP3, and as you mentioned, Carlos Sainz, fastest in practice. They felt they got a car good enough to land on pole, but Carlos said that in Q2, they realised as soon as they saw the pace of that McLaren and that Red Bull, that actually they weren't going to be in the hunt for it, because they felt that they were almost extracting as much as they could get out of their car in Q2. And that's the way it turned out in Q3. So yes, there is a sense of disappointment within Ferrari, in particular when you consider the upgrade package that they brought to that car this weekend. It is a step. Carlos said it's not a big enough step right now, because it's still struggling through high-speed corners in particular. They still need more out of that SF24 going forward. So right now, Austria and Silverstone, you can probably estimate that they are going to be in the mix, but not right at the front of that mix with McLaren, Red Bull and Mercedes, which for them is going to be quite a disappointment if that proves to be the case, unless they can just add little bits more going into Spielberg and Silverstone.
And of course, as we saw in Canada, if it does start raining, if the circuit is cool or damp, that didn't really suit the SF24. So something else to take into account tomorrow. Very quickly, before we get onto our bold predictions, two teams who appear to have completely swapped places. Alpine, as I mentioned, both of their drivers on what is quite a controversial weekend for the team with the signing of former team boss Flavio Briatore. Gasly and Ocon both in Q3, whereas both Tsunoda and Ricciardo for RB on a weekend where they've brought a significant amount of upgrades, both out in Q1. It's almost like the two teams have just this weekend on a complete flip.
Yeah, let's start with Alpine first, and I'm going to offer my humble apologies to Alpine because I did say after FP2 that I didn't expect either car to be in the top 10. So there you go, that blows my theory. In fairness, speaking to both Esteban and Pierre in the pen after qualifying, neither of them expected to be anywhere near Q3. In fact, Esteban went so far as to suggest that he never even expected to get out of Q1. So to do what they have done was quite an achievement. However, you ask either driver, so how did you do it? They don't really know. They're not quite sure, in all honesty, Nick, which
That's
comes
useful.
as quite a surprise. You kind of think that they would have a little bit of an idea,
Yeah.
a little bit of a handle as to what that car was doing compared to what it's done previously when it's really, really struggled. But the bottom line is that it's just another piece in a convoluted puzzle for Alpine that they're still trying to completely figure out, because that car is now, it's made strides, absolutely, to do what it's done here. But the suggestion is that, as we mentioned previously, that this is a circuit where you get a good idea as to what the car's going to do. They don't really know how that car's going to perform in Austria. They don't really know how that car's going to perform in Silverstone. They've really got to try and work things out, but they're locking out the fourth row of the grid. So let's just throw this into the mix. We know what happened in Monaco when Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly came upon one another around that circuit.
Here we go.
Oh, yes. So first corner, first lap could be very, very interesting for those two guys. They were both asked the question afterwards, are you going to be able to keep it clean? Esteban said, of course we are. Pierre said, of course we are. Let's see what happens. There is going to be a pretty strong debate, you would assume, with Mr. Bruno Famin, the team principal, likely laying down he will be laying down the law once again. In fairness, he did that pre-Monaco, and look what happened. We know what happens when the visor comes down. Everything kind of changes. So let's see if they can keep it clean. And then, moving on to RB. What a major disappointment for those guys. They came into it with their own significant upgrade package. A lot of parts changed on that car. Yuki Tsunoda, 17th, Daniel Ricciardo, 18th. Daniel, when he was told over the radio as to where he was, just basically was lost for words. He said, complete silence. He could not believe it. So to come out of Montreal, achieving what they achieved, both in qualifying and the race, scoring points, good strong points for the team, believing that they were at the front of that midfield pack, potentially even jostling with Aston Martin. Now, all of a sudden, they're at the back of the grid. A major surprise. Again, though, they both drivers saying there's a lot that can be worked on. So do not take this as read that where we are seeing RB now is where we are going to see RB in Austria and in Silverstone. They've got a lot to work on. They appreciate that, but hopefully this is not the picture for them going forward, that there actually is a lot more to unlock with that car and with that upgrade package.
Good stuff. Well, I guess that just leaves one thing, and that is, of course, our bold predictions, which I think are going to be incredibly difficult given the current, changing weather forecast. So you know what? I'm going to be kind. I'm going to give you a second to have a think. I'm going to go first. And I have a feeling we're going to get a Lando Norris win. just something about it. I think I've said that every week now since Miami, ever since that came true. I think we're going to get then a Mercedes, not sure what order, Mercedes second and third. Undecided, but not in the top three. I just think tomorrow is going to be. We don't even need the rain for a fascinating race. There are so many drivers in contention. In a way, it's the one time where rain could potentially even spoil a fascinating race. There's a sense of unpredictability in a way about what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, there is most absolutely that sense of unpredictability. We're not quite sure what's going to happen. Just a few of the local fat marshals there behind me. So that gives it. Yeah, I'm on just to give some people an idea. Just before I answer that, I'm on a bridge that links from Paddington to the other, and it's a lot of TV gantry points here as well. So I'm looking at paddock just in front of me, and what grandstands there just behind me. So that gives people an idea as to where I'm stood at the moment. That's why I've got such a good vantage point. That's why I can feel as well, Mick, the wind blowing. Now, I stood here yesterday, as you know, beautiful sunshine, not a breath of wind. Right now, there is quite strong gusts. And if that rain is coming in as well, you can expect that wind to potentially play a part tomorrow. We know what it's like around here. It does have a major effect. Just to go back to the predictions, okay, that's quite an intriguing curveball you've thrown me there.
It's bold.
It is bold. I do feel McLaren has something going on at this circuit. Lando especially, more so than Oscar, quite obviously. He's struggled a little bit in comparison to his teammate. So I have to match you. I think I am going to go with the Lando win.
But
I feel that Mercedes does have really good race pace from what I've seen so far. Your theory that a Mercedes is probably going to be second, and you've gone second and third.
It's bold.
I'm gonna go Lewis second, and I'm gonna go Max third. There you go. There's my top three: Lando, Lewis, Max.
There you go. That's not a bad, bold prediction. Of course, for those who are watching, let us know your thoughts on qualifying today and also your predictions for tomorrow's race in the comment section below. Ian, make sure you've got your sunscreen tomorrow, but I think also your umbrella.
No, we're going to need my rain jacket tomorrow, mate. Oh, I just felt the first spot of rain. It is actually just started raining. There we go. Coming up to 8 o'clock, as predicted, the first few spots was falling over the circuit.
In which case, let's wrap this up so you can get inside. From myself and Ian, this has been the Racing News 365.com post-qualifying F1 update. Be sure to tune in on Sunday. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We will see you for race day tomorrow. See you later.
As always, take care, folks.